Well, hello everyone. How's everyone doing? All right, now here's how this is gonna go. It's probably a decent spot. Okay. We are going to cover plant systems. Now we've covered all the body systems. Now we need to cover plant systems. So plant systems, we're going to compare plants with animals just a little bit. So we got to see what's similar, what's different. Of course, we know what the differences are. We can see them. But let's look at some of the similarities between them. First, there are a couple different types of plants. You have angiosperms, which are the flowering plants. So any plant that you see with flowers on it, that is going to be your angiosperm. So most trees are angiosperms, and most plants that produce fruit, even cacti, are angiosperms. So let's move on and look at their anatomy. Now, as you can see, we got a big vocabulary list right here. Move that up here. So let's start with the root. The root is what takes in the nutrients and transports them up through the stem. So the stem is kind of the body of the plant where everything grows out of. So roots pull in nutrients from the ground. Stem is the body of the plant and carries nutrients up and down. Then we have our carpel. I guess I better. Okay, right. So we have our roots. Stem is here, right? It goes all the way up here. Okay, then we have our carpel, which is this whole thing right here. That's the carpel. And it is going to have three different parts: the stigma, style, and ovary. Carpel is where the ovary or ovule is. So there's the ovule. The ovary where the egg is in the plant. So where the seed is in a lot of plants. So sunflower seeds, the carpel is where the ovary is, and what you eat is the actual ovule, the seed. So next we have xylem and phloem. Now xylem, as you can see, they're distinguished here, and the phloem are distinguished here. So they're the vessels for transport of your nutrients and waste in a plant. So xylem actually brings and carries nutrients and water up through the plant, up into the plant from the roots, and the phloem takes nutrients and waste down through the plant to get rid of them. So that's the difference between xylem and phloem. Stomata. Now, I don't really have a good picture of stomata here, but stomata are usually on the underside of plants. And what they do is they are openings for transpiration. Now, what transpiration is the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide and water. So it's kind of like transpiration. They kind of consider it as sweating in the plant. This plant sweating, it's getting rid of water that it doesn't need out of the stomata. Also, the stomata, you're going to have gas exchange happen in the stomata as well. So it'll bring in carbon dioxide and get rid of the oxygen, which is pretty awesome. So they just look like little mouths on the underside of leaves, because if you put them on the other side of leaves, then you're not going to lose as much water as you normally would when the plant needs to keep the water. So that's kind of angiosperms anatomy for you. Next, better change this. Let's kind of look at their life cycle. Now, first you have the anther right here. Let me get my marker. The anther is right here, all these. That's where the pollen is. So we've already had meiosis. Meiosis is happening in here, and it's creating the pollen. The pollen will actually go inside the ovary or ovule and pollinate it, usually using some insect or birds or whatever we're using. So then once it fertilizes the egg, right? Fertilizes, what do they call it? Becomes a zygote, yeah, egg. So, whoa, what in the heck is just happening? Sweet. So now we plant the seed, and the seed, once it sprouts up out of the ground, so the dirt would be right here, we call that germination, sprouting of the plant out of the ground. So right now I've planted a garden about three weeks ago. I've got a few cantaloupes that have germinated. That's about it. It's kind of depressing. So, yeah, I don't have a green thumb. That's why I take care of cacti, because, they're a little bit easier. Anyway, so then it'll flower and it starts the whole process over again, which is pretty cool. So that's the angiosperm life cycle. Now, we do distinguish angiosperms in a couple different ways. We distinguish them as monocots or dicots. Now, what that means is the cot actually stands for cotyledon right here. So does it have one cotyledon or two cotyledons? So let's look at what I'm actually talking about. What we're talking about is this little thing right here. That is one cotyledon, and of course that's a corn seed. And then right here we have a pea seed. So when we're looking at it, we can actually see, is it a monocot or a dicot? Now, one thing you can think about is, okay, corn, when you're eating corn and you squeeze out, you get one of the kernels and you squeeze out the little white seed thing, that's what you think of it as. That's actually the cotyledon. It's a monocot. So most monocots are going to have fibrous roots. So if you've ever had a corn planted in your garden, you can actually, if you have a garden, if you don't, maybe look at some roots for corn, and then you'll see that they have these fibrous roots. They're just all spread out. There's no like big root that goes down into the ground. It's a fibrous root that kind of spreads out. It's pretty cool. Now, the vascularity of these plants, you see this scattered vascularity. So you're just going to have the xylem and phloem kind of randomly through it all. And the leaves are going to have a parallel vein structure. So the veins, you can even see this in grasses. Grasses are monocots. And you're usually, if they flower at all, you're usually only going to have multiples of 3. So you could have 6, 9 petals, but that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about flowers. All right, you could have 6 petals here, and that's still multiples of 3. Now, when we see dicots, you're going to have 2 cotyledon inside. So if you've ever opened up a pea seed, like the ones we worked on, earlier in the year, if you open it up on accident or on purpose, you should have seen a double-sided one. So you cut it in half, you open it up, and you'll see a double-sided one. So if you eat peas, when you eat peas, hopefully you eat peas, they're really good for plant protein. Anyway, so open it up, and you'll actually see that it has 2. I know it looks like 1, but when you split it in half, it makes 2. Now, these plants are going to have this tap root that goes deep into the ground, and so you'll have these little fibers coming out. Wonder what carrots are. Oh yeah, carrots must be a dicot because what you eat is the actual tap root. If you've ever pulled a carrot out of the ground, you'll see all the little fibrous roots out to the side of it, and then one big tap root that goes into the ground. We planted some carrots, and I'm hoping they grow. Anyway, so, but they have, if you look at the stem, you're going to see this ringed vasculature. Okay, and you can actually kind of break them up or cut them or however you want and kind of try to look at it. It's pretty cool. And when you look at the leaves, you're going to see this net-like vein. So a lot of the leaves we think about are these dicots. You could look at the leaf and know what it is. Now we're going to go on a little nature walk here probably tomorrow. We'll do a nature walk and I'll show you guys some stuff around school from the angiosperms. Now, the last thing we need to talk about is right here. Their flowers are going to flower in 4 or 5 petals. That's it. It's 4 or 5 petals, and it's good to go. So that's kind of the difference between monocots and dicots, just the really basic part of it. Now, that's really all I got for you guys. So that's it for angiosperms.